Hey everyone, today we are going to be talking about the R2 remote because it's been out for a few weeks now, so we thought we'd give you our thoughts on what it's been like to use, plus answer some of the questions we've seen out in the community. So one of the big things for me when I first heard about the new R2 remote was the idea of a split accelerator and brake. I thought it was going to be kind of clunky and awkward to use. That has not at all been the case. I have actually found it to be extremely intuitive and offer a completely new feel for the board.
Definitely, the R2 remote, straight out of the box, super easy to use, smooth acceleration, smooth braking, and doesn't have that learning curve that the first remote had a little bit of. One thing we've heard heaps from the evelve community is how much they're loving the longer acceleration curve and braking curve on the new remote. That means much more gradual power when you're accelerating and much more control when you're braking.
Nice. So what this means for me is that previously I used to ride the board in either eco or fast mode as default, but now I always keep it in GT mode because I have such great control over the acceleration. And that also means it's a lot more fun to ride.
So what I'm really digging about the new R2 remote is the new display. Not only is it clearer, but also you've got a battery readout for the board and the remote. Also, with the design now, I can clearly see the screen without taking my fingers off either of the triggers, whereas with the original remote, I could never see the screen.
The other thing that's been added is the new wheel settings for the 107mm wheels, which is really great. We do see the question, if you do change the wheel settings, does it change the performance of the board? And it doesn't. The only thing it does change when you change those settings is the speedometer to tell you how fast you are going. Another question we get a little bit is, what does V1 or V2 mean? Simply, they are the protocols for the motor controller. You either have a V1 motor controller or a V2 motor controller. It does not affect the performance of the board at all. Jeff did a how-to video on how to set that up, so you should watch that if you're not sure. But basically, if you turn the board on and it doesn't pair, just go in, change the protocol, and it should pair up without a problem.
So, which boards does this little bad boy work with? It's designed to work with all of the GT boards, the GTX and the One.
Keep in mind though that with the One board, it doesn't give you a total trip reading, otherwise it is compatible. This remote unit also ships standard with the GT boards and the GTX, but not the One board. The One board has its own remote, so you'll have to purchase this separately. So we're seeing a lot of comments about how the new remote functions change the feel of the board, and that is indeed true, especially on the street setup. Previously, I didn't favor the street setup as much because of the heavier acceleration, but now with more control over it, I really enjoy riding in street mode. People have asked a couple of questions around the strength and sturdiness of the unit. Now, with the old remote, there were occasionally instances where if you banged into something or dropped it, the trigger could come loose a little bit, which caused a couple of problems. With the new one, the trigger is a lot more solid and so is the brake, and it is fairly well guarded. But just to be sure, we did a couple of little tests.
Tell me you'll get like a countdown or something.
We're good.
Yeah.
Still on. Works. It works. So as you can see, the remote is fairly sturdy. We dropped it twice, one from board height and once while moving, and it still worked fine, and the board was able to be ridden, and both the triggers for the brake and accelerator are absolutely okay. Only a couple of nicks and scratches where it made contact with the ground. Good range.
Couple of tips. One is there's a dead man switch now on the remote. You can turn that off in the settings. I've turned mine off because now with the triggers not being so sensitive, I feel like I've got much more control over that sensitivity.
Another question we sometimes get is what happens if I run out of juice for my remote while out on a ride? We like to carry these portable little battery packs around with us. They weigh pretty much nothing and are very portable, and they will charge your remote pretty quickly. One other thing we've noticed is that the brake will always win over the accelerator. So you could be pressing the accelerator, hit the brake, and the board will start braking. But if you release the brake and keep pressing from there, it still won't accelerate because the brake function has been activated. Remember, you have to fully release the accelerator and press it again before it moves forward. So all up, I really do like this new remote and all its functions. I particularly like the new brake and accelerator. It has really transformed my ride and has got me actually riding a lot more.
Yeah, totally agree. I felt like the old remote was a new skill you had to learn, whereas this remote, you don't even think about it, you just get on and enjoy your ride. Pew, 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 pew.